What's going on in the Lotus Sutra chapter 14 titled Peaceful and Agreeable Practices? After you watching this video, you will have three feelings. One, okay, now I understand the basic storyline of the chapter. Two, and I also know the highlighted important passages of the chapter. And three, wow, now I can understand what this particular chapter is doing in an overall entire context of the Lotus Sutra, which has 28 chapters. So first of all, I want to thank many of you for requesting by saying, hey Kyohei, please restart your series of videos that go over each chapter of the Lotus Sutra. And this is exactly my response to your request, with gratitude. I'm crying. So let's start. This chapter starts with a question by Bodhisattva Manjushri, who asks Shakyamuni, "World honored one, rare indeed are such bodhisattvas as these. Respectfully following the Buddha, they have made a great vow that in the evil age to come, they will protect, keep, read, recite, and teach this Dharma Flower Sutra. World-honored one, how will these bodhisattva mahasattvas be able to teach this sutra in the evil age to come?" So Shakyamuni's answer to this question is called Four Peaceful and Agreeable Practices, or Four Policies, that occupy most of the pages of this chapter. But first, let's be clear about this Manjushri's statement. Bodhisattva Manjushri is known for the virtue of wisdom, and he says these bodhisattvas are rare to find. But who is he talking about? Who are these bodhisattvas? According to him, they made a vow to spread the word about the Lotus Sutra and share them with others in an evil age to come. What does it really mean, the evil age to come? So the answer to these questions will be clear if we go back to chapters 11 and 13. So for instance, like chapter 11, the huge stupa sprang from the earth and hovers into the air. And then inside the stupa, do you remember? The Tathagata abundant treasure, who was supposed to be the dead ancient Buddha, appeared. So it seems like the Lotus Sutra has a power to revive the past. Right? So the Shakyamuni and the Tathagata treasures sitting next to each other in the stupa, and the entire audience was lifted into the air. So that's the change of the scenery that was happening in the chapter 11. And toward the end of the chapter, Shakyamuni said this to the audience: "Who in this Saha domain is capable of widely expounding the wondrous Dharma Flower Sutra? Now indeed is the time to do so, for soon the Tathagata will enter Nirvana." So Shakyamuni there was saying, okay, I'm going to pass away very soon. So who will take over my responsibility of spreading the Lotus Sutra? So this calling is answered in chapter 13 by his disciples. These disciples are Bodhisattva Medicine King, Bodhisattva Great Joy and Teaching, and their retinues of 20,000 bodhisattvas, 500 Arhats, and 8,000 people both trained and still in training, who received the assurance of Buddhahood. So now we know these are the guys that Manjushri was talking about at the outset of chapter 14. And in chapter 13, these guys respond to Shakyamuni's great calling by saying this: "Please, world-honored one, do not worry. After the Buddha passes away, we will uphold, embrace, read, recite, and expound this sutra. In an evil age to come, living beings' roots of goodness will dwindle, while their prideful arrogance will abound. They will greedily crave profit and donations, increase their unwholesome roots, and be far removed from emancipation. Though they may be difficult to teach and transform, we will summon our utmost patience and spare neither our bodies nor our lives in reading and reciting the sutra, embracing, expounding, copying, and paying it every kind of homage." So this is a very strong commitment, right? And probably this reflects a historical context of the presence of the rival or competing groups that attacked the Lotus Sutra group of that time. Okay, so these bodhisattvas made a vow in chapter 13 as a response to Shakyamuni's calling in chapter 11. And then in chapter 14, four policies are instructed for these bodhisattvas who made a vow to share the Lotus Sutra with others in the coming age of the decline of the Dharma, or in an evil age where the people's roots of goodness will dwindle while their prideful arrogance will abound. So the root of goodness means a desire for Buddhahood, desire or willingness to infinitely grow. But people tend to be attached to gaining profits, and because of that, getting away from desiring such a spiritual goal. That's kind of the time of the evil age where people are like that. These bodhisattvas are committed to sharing the Lotus Sutra with these difficult people so that they will realize that the truth of their worldly desires is paradoxically to be free from those mundane desires. This is a difficult task. I mean, to be free from mundane desires means to achieve Buddhahood. So because of difficulty, before doing that kind of mission, some kind of orientation is necessary, right? Otherwise, these bodhisattvas will get lost and burn out. So in order to avoid that, chapter 14 offers 4 policies for these bodhisattvas. So giving 4 policies like a Buddha's class, how to become a bodhisattva 101. If you want to become a bodhisattva, you would want to read this chapter on your own as well, definitely. In order to make this more intuitive, let's imagine this. This scene is something like me saying to you all, I'll be returning to Japan. Because of that, I gotta finish and end this channel very soon. Who is willing to take over this channel or start your own Buddhist YouTube channel on the Lotus Sutra? Let's say you say yes to this calling. But as a neophyte bodhisattva YouTuber, oh, by the way, if you are doing a Buddhist YouTube already, please let me know. Let's do some collaboration after I finish my PhD, hopefully by the end of next summer in 2023. If you're a new Buddhist YouTuber, you may get lost without any orientation. So I would want to offer a session like how to become a Buddhist YouTuber 101 for you. So that's the 4 policies or peaceful and agreeable practices of chapter 14. So my Buddhist YouTuber policies probably will include practicing forbearance because the growth of the channel may be very slow like mine. Sometimes some people might leave some negative comments, but don't worry, I would say always know that you are doing great. If you need to talk to me, let me know and I'll listen to your feelings and concerns. And I would also say you're always already wonderful. I would also make sure to say and encourage you, when you are sick and cannot publish your videos for a month or so, that's okay, you gotta take care of yourselves first. According to your budget, I suggest you try this microphone and camera and so on, and the video editing software can be either this or that, and so on. So in chapter 14, that type of conversation, but not about how to become a Buddhist YouTuber, but about how to become a bodhisattva of one vehicle, is going on. So Buddha is very, how to say, caring, gentle, and kind. That said, finally let's take a look at the 4 policies. The first one is according to Shakyamuni, these bodhisattvas should steadfastly abide within the sphere of bodhisattva practices and the spheres of the bodhisattva's close associations so that they will be able to elucidate this sutra to living beings. The sphere of bodhisattva practice means to abide in the state of forbearance. In this context, forbearance means having no attachment in the midst of interactions with people for the sake of sharing the Lotus Sutra. The other sphere, Bodhisattva's close associations, interestingly lists types of people whom Bodhisattvas should not approach. Isn't this list a little bit interesting? How do you make sense of this list? Like, why Bodhisattvas should not associate with these guys according to a historical Indian context? For instance, the sutra says you can share the lotus with them, but do it without any expectations, according to chapter 15. And if they don't get the Lotus Sutra, I wonder how is the vision of the sutra, the universal Buddhahood, to be realized? But I think one way to make sense of this is that Shakyamuni is here talking to bodhisattvas who realize the certainty of their Buddhahood just recently. So in this sense, the policy given here at Shakyamuni's session is, as I said earlier, is like Bodhisattva Way 101. So he's doing an orientation for newcomers. The topic here is, how can we, bodhisattvas, stay calm and peaceful while we engage with worldly affairs and spread the spirit of the Lotus Sutra? The second policy is about speech, according to which bodhisattvas should take no joy in speaking of the shortcomings of other people or sutras. They should not scorn other teachers. They should not mention other people's good or evil or their strengths or weaknesses. They should not designate Shravakas by name in praising their virtues, nor bear any resentment or hatred towards them. Sure, it makes sense to abstain from criticizing others, their teachers, or other Buddhist sutras, but what should be avoided also includes what is mentioning anything good about them or praising the virtues of Shravakas. Why is that? To me, it's puzzling. But if you look at the verse section of this part, you find it says, because they, bodhisattvas, steadfastly abide in forbearance. So the forbearance is what the first policy also stated to mean having no attachment in the midst of all Dharma activities. So here's what I think why talking about something good is not really good. If you speak of goodness that is conceived as something in contrast to evil, goodness versus evil, then this goodness ends up being a relative goodness. And so speaking of that will be structurally the same as talking about the evil. Because in that case, speaking of either one of them is only possible by negation of the other, and is hence conditioned by the other. So perhaps avoiding to talk about these things in a relative sense is what is suggested here. I don't know. What do you think? The third policy is about intention or mind, which states, these bodhisattvas should not harbor envy, flattery, or deceit in their hearts. They should not slight or chastise others learning the Buddha way, or seek out their strengths and weaknesses. They should regard all living beings with great compassion, think of the Tathagatas as their kind-hearted fathers, and consider bodhisattvas as their great teachers. They should always, from the bottom of their hearts, revere and respect the great bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. They should teach the Dharma to all living beings equally, as accords with the Dharma. I love this part of not slighting or not chastising, but why are these acts important? Well, historically speaking, there probably were supposedly rival or competing groups who did not like the Lotus Sutra group. So if they hear any criticism from the Lotus group, they will react and may be upset and further attack the Lotus group. So instead of chastising or slighting, the Lotus Sutra's suggestion was to approach their enemies with compassion. According to the chapter, when the third policy is practiced, then nothing will be able to vex or disturb them when they teach this sutra. So again, this is another kind of forbearance, which is the mindfulness in the midst of Dharma activities. The fourth policy states, they should give rise to great benevolence for both lay people and monastics, and give rise to great compassion for people who are not yet bodhisattvas. So this echoes with the third policy. Then the chapter ends with one of the so-called 7 parables of the Lotus Sutra. So chapter 14 presents the 6th, the parable of the jewel in the top knot. Risha Kosekai International has a very nice illustration and summary of all these parables, and let us borrow their material to review the parable. Thank you, Risha Kosekai. So let's go one by one. This great holy wheel rolling king symbolizes the Buddha, And the soldiers who take part in the battles are the students of the Lotus Sutra like you and I. The point of the parable is to say that the jewel in the top knot is only given to someone who has achieved something amazing. The jewel symbolizes the Lotus Sutra, meaning its teaching of one vehicle, which is the universal assurance of Buddhahood. But I wonder, why did Shakyamuni Buddha need to tell this parable at this moment of the Lotus Sutra? The parable says that the lotus is only taught when his disciples are ready to hear and understand it. So this was kind of already told in chapter 2. Now Shakyamuni is talking to the bodhisattva newcomers and walk them through what kind of interactions are to be expected and how they can be prepared for that. And they made a great vow. With all of these in mind, I think the parable needed to be told at this point in order to encourage all these newcomer bodhisattvas. In other words, Shakyamuni is kind of re-articulating how amazing achievement all these bodhisattvas have made. Now they are truly ready to hear, understand, and practice the Lotus Sutra. The Shakyamuni wants them to be reminded of that achievement. If Shakyamuni tells that to you, how would you feel? In my case, I would be more confident and uplifted, so I will further strengthen my will to spread the word of the Lotus Sutra. So in that sense, Buddha is, out of compassion, carefully guiding his disciples in chapter 14. That's chapter 14 in a nutshell, and I want you to read that chapter on your own as well. And the biggest takeaway for me from this chapter is forbearance. What do you think? What is your takeaway? Let me know in the comments as well. Forbearance seems to be a shared theme of all of these 4 policies to remain calm and peaceful in the midst of busy everyday life and all of your activities. How would practicing these 4 policies in your particular life situations look like? How can we use them for your business sales, building good relationship with your family, friends, clients, and strangers? Let me know your ideas and stories of practice in the comments below.